Hi, welcome to another Learn, Grow, Invest meeting. I'm Jermaine, one of the co-founders of this community. Today we're going to be talking about, what do you need to get started with purchasing your very first home? As you start to grow as an investor, one of the things you look forward to is owning your first home. And that's why I wanted to do this video to help you with the step-by-step process as to the things that you'll need. Now, this is going to be a very high-level video. And the reason why that is that we want persons to have an understanding of the process at a high level. And then we'll have subsequent videos where we drill down and help you to, understand each process that we're going to list here today. So, get a pen and a piece of paper, be ready to take notes, and we're just going to dive right into understanding what you need to purchase your very first home. We are a Bible-based investment community focused on financial education and literacy. We're founded on Deuteronomy 8:18, which says, "Remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." And so we just want to thank God before we start. So I'm going to say a brief prayer. Lord, I thank you so much that we have the ability to learn, grow, and invest as a community. We pray, Lord, that for this session, you'll give us wisdom, insight, and understanding to be able to use the knowledge that we'll gain to make good investment decisions. Bless this community. In your name we pray. Amen. All right. So I have the pleasure to speak with a good friend of mine. So I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. But as we go in the conversation, you'll see why I thought she'd be the perfect person to speak here today. And we'll be doing a number of videos together. She's my personal agent, so I'm very pleased to introduce Miss Judy Benjamin. Judy, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for including me, being on the other side of the community of the lens.
Yeah, you've been a long time viewer. Now you're
Yes,
able to participate, and I mean
that's
that's
correct.
kind of what we do, right? We want to give persons access to information. You've been a great resource for us in helping
Yes,
us. The story here is that Judy is the one who helped us acquire our first investment property. So we'll speak about that process a little bit later on in the end,
yes.
maybe the end of the series. But
Mhm.
yeah, I just thought Judy would be just a great person to speak on this.
Thank
So
you.
Judy, tell us, who you are, what you do, and tell
Okay.
us about, get us started as to the very first step person should think of before we get into the checklist.
Yes.
What sort of mindset or mind frame should one be when they're thinking about purchasing their first home?
Personal. Okay, thank you, Jermaine. So I'm Judy Benjamin. I am a real estate broker and property manager. So my company is Benjamin's Realty Services. And what we do is we assist people in buying, selling, renting, managing their properties, and anything else, any referral business to help you get started and to have you really enjoy the process, which sometimes tends to be a little disheartening, but we get you through the process so that you can realize your dream of property ownership. So we look at residential properties and commercial properties. So that is who I am. I've been in the business for over 20 years. It's a boutique organization, so we have a few agents, and we just really try to get as close to and to help our prospects and our customers as best we can. So that's it. I
So
think that
you work with
Jermaine, I believe that property ownership is something that is a right. I believe that we know it's a store of wealth. We know that it helps with financial mobility. It does so much for you when you can own something, own real property. So our mission really is to encourage people in the acquisition process, the disposal process, and the entire process of real estate, of acquiring real estate, getting more, selling to get more, whatever your need is. So we believe that it is possible for everybody to have and to own real estate, and no matter where you're starting or how much you have or how much you perceive you don't have, we believe that there's a way to prepare to do it and to get it done. That's our
yeah.
mission. Really.
I agree as well, and we will actually talk about in a few of our later videos what type of budget you should have. So we'll get to that. For those who are concerned about
Right.
what they can't afford or
Yes.
want to know what they can afford, we'll get to that. Believe me, we will.
Yes.
So, one of the things you said there, Judy, I want to just be clear here for those who are watching. So you work with both persons who are buying and persons who are selling, right?
Yes, I do. So in any real estate transaction, you're going to have a vendor and a purchaser. So the vendor is the person who is selling, and that is usually the person who would contract our services to help them to find somebody who is willing and able to purchase their property. On the other side, when you're working with a buyer, the process is a little different, but it is also to get them ready to purchase and have them in a position where if something comes up that they're able to afford, that they're able to move on it. So, I mean,
Okay.
it is the process. We can talk about that later, but the process is different on either side, but we do both sides of it.
Yes. So yes, perfect. So I wanted to get that understood, because today we're going to be focused on those who are buying. But at
Purchasing.
some point, we imagine that persons will be interested in understanding process to sell, as well
That's
as some
right.
of the considerations they need to make. What's the best selling price? What are some of the fees I need to consider, etc.
Exactly.
We'll get to that in a later video.
Right.
But for today, we're focused on the person who is buying. Now, at some point in our lives, we envision ourselves, growing up, getting married, buying a house, buying a car. That picture that we've grown up to think that
Yes.
defines success. Now, we're not really subscribed to that here,
Mm-hmm.
but at some point you will think about buying a home, is essentially what I'm saying here.
Yes, that is
So,
that you're correct.
yeah.
You're
So when
correct.
somebody thinks about or is ready for buying a home, what's the very first thing that they should do?
The first thing that they should do is you have to get yourself mentally prepared. It is a big decision. It's a big outlay, and it is something, it may be the biggest expenditure that you have made to date, when you're doing your first home. So there's some things that you have to be very clear on. You have to be clear on the what you're going to use the property for, if you're going to be living in it or invest, or if it's an investment. You have to also look at becoming pre-approved with a mortgage company, because we know that even though you may feel that you're not ready, it's good to know what you need to do to be ready. So that's the mindset that you have. Is not to say, boy, I'm not making enough and I don't think I can. No, let me find out what I need to do in order to be ready in a year or in 2 years. So it's
Okay,
to put your ducks in a row.
yeah. So let's pause there. That word that you mentioned, pre-approval.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
That's the very first thing that you're actually going to do. What is that? What does it mean? How do I get that?
What a pre-approval does is that it tells you what you're able to afford. So typically you go to a mortgage company. You don't have to be banking with them or a client of theirs. You just choose one. You may want to shop around, but the initial thing is just to choose one. Choose one and go in. Let them know what you're earning and what your expenditure is. So you look at your income and expenditure very, very briefly, and they will give you an idea of what you can afford. They can also tell you, okay, if you can only afford X now, if you save Y or reduce your expenditure or increase your earnings, you can then get more. So it's a good place to start, because even though you may not be ready to go out and buy somewhere, what it does, it prepares you to do so. So I'll give you an example. Some years ago, I was like, boy, I need to buy somewhere now. So I said, okay, let me find out what I need. So I went into the mortgage person. He said to me, Judy, if you want to buy something for X amount, this is what you need. Your earning has to be this. Your expenditure needs to be this. Your ratio has to be a certain amount for you to get that. So what that did was made me say, okay, all right, I need to now start to save X amount. I need to increase my income by Y, and it puts you in a position. So don't be daunted by it. It's just information. So the first time that you're going to really start this process, you may not be ready, but it's to get you ready. So that is why it's important.
So you'd actually recommend getting that pre-approval letter even before you go and look for a home, because that pre-approval letter will let you know what homes are within your current.
Exactly. And you know, I think when you're preparing, it is good to speak to the mortgage person, because then you may not get a pre-approval letter at that stage, you know, but you'll get the information that you need to know what you will want to buy. So let
Yeah.
us say you get a pre-approval letter and you just start working, you're fresh out of school, you're preparing yourself. You know that if you're not working for a year yet, you won't have NHT, so you have to wait so you
Yeah.
can get that benefit. And that benefit plus your savings, so it kind of puts you on a path to property ownership. So
Okay.
after
Okay.
you already know, then you get the pre-approval letter. When you have done all of that, you get your pre-approval letter, and then you can go house or property hunting.
Yeah. So again, just to assure persons here, we're going to get
Understand?
into how to leverage your NHD benefit. What are the
Yes.
requirements? What you need? We'll talk about the CRTD loan as well, that persons who contribute to NHD might have access to in order to help with
Yes.
their deposit.
Mm-hmm.
That's in another video, but
Yes.
we're going to cover it.
Okay.
So I've gotten that pre-approval letter. I'm ready now. I've wrapped my mind around it. I'm going and get a pre-approval letter. Let's say that I'm pre-approved for $15 million for
Mm-hmm.
argument's sake. What do
Right.
I do with that now? Is that at the point where I come to speak to you? What's
Yes.
my next step?
But when you get your pre-approval letter is when you're going to employ the services of a realtor. So you're going to look at different websites, shop around, find out who you know, call Jermaine or whoever you know who may have somebody to put you on to, and then you're going to start the process. You are going to interview about 3 or 4 realtors before you decide who you're using. Ensure that their work ethic, their character, how they operate suits you. It's
Yeah,
an interview. We as realtors we are trying to get the job of helping you. It's a job that we're getting. So you're going to meet with them, see if the person connects with you. After that, then you're going to start the process. You will have to set up some expectations. You will have to know, okay, I expect I can only go out on a weekend, on a Saturday. How is that for you? You know, you set those barriers, those not barriers, those
boundaries or just kind of
boundaries.
rules of engagement kind of thing.
Exactly. You get the terms of reference that you're going to have, and then you start. That realtor should be able to funnel properties to you, by email, WhatsApp, by phone, whatever, for you to then go view them and make a decision. So it is very important that you develop the relationship with the realtor where you have easy communication, good communication. I mean, even if your pre-approval letter says X and you know that your mother is going to lend you the deposit of Y, then you tell that to your realtor. The more
Yeah.
information he or she has is the best they'll be able to assist you.
Yeah, so I'll just add there, and that's been my experience as well. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to give the realtor as much context as
Yes.
possible so that they
Yes.
can find the home that suits you. Now, if you don't know the options,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna ask, Judy, to help persons who, let's say, I'm brand new to this. I don't know what's available. I don't know what to look for. I don't
Right.
know what I like. How
Yeah.
can you help me figure out what I like? What are my options to consider?
Okay, well, the realtor that you choose should take you through a kind of interview session where you're going to they'll ask you, what do you like about a house? They may show you some online and say what you like, what you don't like. It's important the size of your family, what neighborhood you need to be in, and all of that you have to look at within the budget that you have, because it does not make sense for you to be gazing, and I use that word, gazing at things that are way out of your reach right now,
Yeah.
and because it spoils you for what you can buy. So it is
Yes, that's
important
true.
that you recognize that you're looking within your budget. It's not that we're saying you won't ever get there, but right now you're looking within the budget that you have, and then you're going to say, okay, do I want to live in it? Am I going to live in it with other people? Am I alone? So those kind of questions will help you to decide what property you're looking for. In addition, first home is not your last home, or your first property is not your last property. So the mindset is not going to be, I'm looking for something that I will live in until the day I leave this earth. That's not it. um, Real estate goes along with your life cycle. So when you're starting, You may decide that you want somewhere to live first. Or you may decide, I'm going to stay in my parents' home, but I'm still going to buy somewhere to invest in as another income stream. So a lot of it depends on that. But I would really like to have people know it's not your last purchase. It's not your dream house. Your first home will not be your dream home. It won't. Because as
Yeah.
you get older, things change and you want other things. So really and truly, I'd like people, when you're starting out, to just recognize you're starting. You will not be able to purchase what many of us are not able to purchase what our parents have, what we left out of, right? So it is good to know that it is good to recognize that you're going to get something that you're going to start with. That's what it is. It's a start.
Yeah.
The mindset has to be that in a couple of years, you're going to take the equity from it and do something else. So
Yeah.
that's what I always encourage people to do.
So I find that's a challenge, right? For some persons, it's almost like they think that it doesn't make sense to start if they can't get really what they want. Kind of help us kind of sift through that. Is it
Yeah.
better to hold out? So let's say that I got pre-approved for 15, but I see something that I really like that I would love that's 30. Do I wait 5, 10 years until my income
No,
reaches there, or do I buy that home for 15, keep on saving, keep on investing as my income increases? I sell that property and then move to the next one. What do you recommend based on your experience?
I recommend that the people I have seen who are successful in real estate, in purchasing and investing, they don't do that. They don't wait. You don't wait, because when you are waiting for that thing at 30, by the time you wait, it will then be 50 or
Yes.
45. So what is important is to start. Now, I want to use my mother as an example, because sometimes they do things when you're young and you're like, why should I buy this?
Yeah.
I remember going with her to a little apartment, and I'm telling you, it was a studio. I mean, like sliding door to the kitchen, a sliding
Wow.
door to the bathroom. It was a studio. And she was there collecting her rent, and I was like, why would mommy buy this? But you see, she was able to purchase it, and then when they saw something else, she was able to sell it. The value had increased, and then she could put towards something else.
Yeah.
So and I always wondered, when I was young, I was like, well, we'd never live here. Why would she do this? She did it because it was an investment. So her money made more than she would have in any other instrument that she could have found. So I think
Yeah.
that you have to start. I mean, I am all for young people trying to get something. It does not matter where it is. Once it is when I say it doesn't matter where it is,
Yeah.
once it's in a location that is reasonable and
It meets the minimum requirements of safety, etc.
yes,
Yeah.
safety and transportation is nearby and so on, go for it. Even if it's a studio, go for it. You
So
can't do it.
our very first apartment, so when we first moved out, we moved into it was a house, and it was extremely out of our budget. We couldn't afford it. I was late with the rent almost every month. And then, we're like, let's find somewhere that's affordable within our budget that we can afford. So we found a studio apartment for $15,000. And we stayed there 5 to 6 years. That
Yes,
place allowed us to save up enough to pay for a deposit to buy a home.
yes.
So
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Jermaine.
I was gonna say that place, I mean, I often miss it sometimes because I find that with a bigger place, you may have more things than you need. But when it's a
Yes,
studio, it causes you to get rid of the excess and focus on the essentials, because one of the things that we'll talk about later on is furnishing a home, which can
yes.
be an expensive endeavor. So when
For
you have
true,
less
true.
space, you have less money that you need to spend to furnish it and get the things that you want, because you won't move into a big house and want to leave the room empty. You're going to
No, you
feel
have to furnish
this
it,
kind of exactly.
because
And
there's when you buy the two things I want to point out. We have a family member who they had a house that was converted, and what they did was allow their church brothers and sisters to live there. You know, they come from out of town, used to live there for 2, 3 years. And I remember one of the owners of the house saying that everybody who comes there taking the bus to a central location, everybody leaves there with a car and have purchased a home.
Yeah.
It was a house with rooms, but it's, and I said to myself, it really is what people have to do. You have to get it into your mind that you're going to stay where you are in order to be able to get yourself in a position to do
Exactly.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
man, you have to. You have to.
All
So that's
right. So we've taken the first step of getting our pre-approval. We've
yes.
taken the step of thinking about, looking at options that have to do with that budget. So
Yes.
I want you to kind of tell us just briefly what
Mm-hmm.
are some of the options. So we know the standard is, apartment or home.
Yes.
What are just some of the things that you found that persons may want to look for? So I know it makes sense to have a session where maybe we show some options, but
Yes.
just for the purposes of understanding at a high level, what are some of the things to think about? Just briefly tell us what are
Yeah.
some of the things that a
We need to
person
think
who
about.
is now thinking about the process should consider as.
Some of the things that we have to consider is, so okay, we have your pre-approval, you know what you can do. Jamaicans we're moving from being single family dwellers, single house family dwellers to apartment dwellers. So if you're trying to live in Kingston, you have to wrap your mind around the idea that you probably would have to buy an apartment, a studio or a one bedroom to start. That's probably where you have to buy. And what you'd have to buy, you probably will not be in the neighborhood that you want to be in for the rest of your life. So it is important for people to know that this is not your dream home. This is a start, right? So you may look at a studio apartment or a one bedroom or a two-bedroom apartment. That is what you may have to start with, because we really don't have a lot of starter single family homes anymore, because even what they're building as starter single family homes are in double digits.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you're not there yet, then that's not just go in your pocket and write a check, and you still have to put in the work to get it. So I'm thinking that to start, people have to be looking for an apartment. Another thing that I've noticed that people have been doing more is buying land. So if you're able to buy land and the mortgage payment is not going to be exorbitant, something that you can afford to do, people will buy land in a certain area, and in maybe 2 or 3 years, when that area starts to develop, you find that they can sell that lot. So
Yeah.
that's also something that you can look at if you just want to start real estate, to buy something. But you have to realize that your king size bed may not fit in the apartment that you're going to get. It's going to be small. So before you spend all that you have on outfit the place that you have rented in king size bed and king size furniture and big whatnot and big dining room table, think about living simply until that time.
Yeah.
That's really what I think. I have seen people, we're trying to buy somewhere, and when we go, they're like, oh, my king size set can't fit in here. And I'm thinking, when you're starting, a king size set not going to fit anywhere.
Yeah.
It will fit in a rental place because you're paying that monthly, but it may not fit in the first place you're going to
In a home
purchase.
that you purchase. Yeah. So
Exactly.
that's actually one of the conversations we've had on this channel. I'll link that video. We spoke about
Yes.
whether or not you should buy versus rent. We've covered that topic already, so we don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to do it here.
Right.
But just in case a person maybe has not seen that video, before we go any further,
Yeah.
what's your feedback as to whether or not a person should buy a home versus rent a home?
Okay. Well, all of that is depending on where you are and what your circumstances. There are people who, when you look, real estate is like your life cycle. There's a cycle involved in it. You leave home, you may rent for a while. If you can, then you buy, and then you may sell it when you get older. You don't know yet. But I think that if you're able to purchase, you purchase. If
Okay.
you're able to purchase, you purchase. If you have enough, um, if you have wealth and you feel to rent, then you rent. But I think that if you're able to purchase, you should purchase, because in the long run, it will benefit you in the long run. If you're able
Okay.
to
So
purchase, you
so
purchase.
so what about, and I'll just ask you this one question. What about that consideration between, so there are persons who think there's this freedom to rent, right? Because one of the
Mm-hmm.
things they don't tell you when you own a home is that there's no landlord to speak to. It's yours. If the roof is leaking, it's yours to fix. If the
Yeah,
pipes aren't working or they're blocked up, it's yours to take care of.
true,
And so,
true.
one of the things that I quickly realized when I moved into my first home that I bought,
Mm-hmm.
one, I started to see things I never saw when I was just looking at the house to buy. Like, it's just
Always.
things appear differently.
Yes, because it's
That
now yours.
exactly that crack that didn't seem too big, that didn't look like it was gonna be a big deal. That little drip, that's okay, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Until, every time there's even light rain, that drip now becomes bigger and it's rolling and it's hitting
Yes.
furniture. Those are things you don't notice when you're just browsing to look at a home, but when you own it, so that sort of difference between, I'm renting, I can move
Mm-hmm.
on at any time, I don't have to worry about the property tax and all of that stuff,
Yeah, true.
versus owning,
Owning.
where it's mine, it's
Responsibility.
appreciating, sure, but I have all this responsibility. I have to think about
Yeah.
home insurance. I have to think about,
Taxes.
after, like, I've never noticed the need for a house to be painted as often as when I'm living in one. Because when I was renting, I didn't care. The landlord would show up maybe every 2 years, painted it. I'm
Yeah.
good.
The thing is that what is happening is that when you own it, you're doing things to secure your investment.
Okay.
You're doing things to ensure that if I need to sell this place, I can get a return. Plus, there's a pride in it. There's a pride in owning your own home. You want it to look a certain way, you know. So I think that you have to be ready to purchase. So let us say you just finished school, you have a good job, things are going, you're investing and so on. You may not be sure if you want to purchase yet, because there is a level of responsibility that is going to come with it. So I think that that is also something that you put in the mix when you're making the decision to get pre-approved. Am I ready or am I not ready? However, if you are able, and I will say this over and over, if you're able to purchase, purchase. In the long
Okay.
run, it will be beneficial to you. If you're able
Okay.
to purchase, purchase. You know what I mean?
All right.
But because it's all about the mental state that you may be in, where you are now in your whole journey, in your plans and so on. Because it's going to be a lot of money. There's responsibility in paying your mortgage and so on. And it's going to take something out of you. But if you can,
Yeah.
you should. If you can,
All
you
right.
should.
So thank you for that. So, we've gotten our pre-approval. We've
Mm-hmm.
spoken to you. We've given us that checklist. We've shared with you the options that we want. We've decided
Mm-hmm.
on a certain house. We've seen stuff in our price range.
And we're
Let's say
ready.
I have now decided on one. I've selected that place. What are the next steps? So
Okay,
walk us through the next steps.
so what would happen is that there's some paperwork that you'll have to do. So you said, Judy, I like that apartment, let's go for it. So we're going to take you through. We have a know your customer form that we're going to have to complete, which is a requirement of the REB, right? And after you complete that, then you're going to have to fill out an offer form, which is going to say who you are, your TRN, where you work, all of that, what you're offering for the property. So you're going to say, okay, I'm offering 15 million. My deposit will be 10%. My balance will be paid from my mortgage at a financial institution, and I will close this. I'm going to try to have it done within 90 days, 120 days, whatever you
Okay.
discuss with your realtor of what you can do. After you do all of that, the realtor is going to submit that offer to the owner. The owner will think about it, see if if they give the best offer, they feel you, they say, yes, let's go with it. And then you get an approval. That is when it really starts. When
Okay.
you get the approval, then we're going to have a sale agreement drafted. So the person the owner of the property, the vendor, is the one who's going to have the sale agreement drafted. His attorney, his or her attorney will have that drafted. And then they send it to your attorney. each attorney makes sure that the interest of their client is protected, and then you pay a deposit, you sign the sale agreement, and that is that date when the sale agreement is signed is the date that we're using to say from that date in 90 days, from that date in 120 days, I will be able to close this sale. What that
Okay.
means is,
So hold on, Judy, because I don't want persons to miss. So a lot of steps would have taken place
yes,
there, right?
true.
So I see a place that I like. I've spoken with you. I say yes, I want to go for it. I think of an offer. I've made this offer. So we'll get into the best ways
Details
to make
after,
offers,
right,
etc. in another video. We're gonna do a Q&A video to cover that.
right.
But let's say I've made this offer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, is it that do I need to know which place I'm gonna be getting the mortgage from? Do I need to know, how,
All of
like,
that.
are there any things that I need to prepare in advance of signing and submitting that offer letter?
Yes. Okay. So when you would have gotten your pre-approval, so we the person or the institution that gave you that pre-approval, they have some of your information. So it's much easier to go through with them, which is the point of the pre-approval. So your mortgage company is going to have a list of things that you're going to have to submit. From the realtor's perspective, and in trying to help you through the process, what we will want you to know from before when we're signing up that offer, the offer letter, is who is going to be your attorney? What kind of relationship you have with them? Is your deposit readily accessible? Is it in a stocks or is it in a bank account somewhere? So that means that you can move quickly because the offer has to go to an attorney who is then going to represent you in the sale, right? The
Yeah.
other thing that you have to know also is you're going to have to get the house valued and you're going to have to get a survey ID report done. So in
Ah,
that conversation, you have to
so
say,
those are the things that I wanted you to get out. And
yes,
so we're
yeah,
calling this episode a checklist high level. So I just wanted you to include those steps because
yes,
I'll do in the description of this video, I'll leave that checklist.
yes,
Maybe just even we can maybe create it in an Excel, they
we
share it so
can,
person can know, okay, these are the things that I need to have
yes,
in place.
right,
Because what we don't want is, like us the very first time we were doing it, some things along the way might have surprised us, or we just didn't understand, okay, we
can do,
needed these things before we could do that. And it
right,
can be frustrating as a new person to think, okay, I'm ready to move to the next step, but it's like, oh no, you need XYZ first. So I
yeah.
just wanted to get in
You,
those because
you have to have an attorney. Do not think that you can do it without. You need somebody to look out for your interest because if we sign the sale agreement today and we pass the dates, the attorney is the one who can negotiate whether you will have to pay interest or not. There are things that they will do to help you as a purchaser.
yeah,
You will have to get a valuation report and you'll have to get a survey's ID report. So along with your sale agreement, which you're going to have to submit to your mortgage company, you're going to have to get a survey and a valuation done to support the mortgage. Those things are there. Those things you have to have. So in your mind, I know that we look at the expenses involved in this too.
yes,
But in your mind, you have to know you have to have an attorney. So the people you have to have a realtor, you have an attorney, you have to have a valuer and a surveyor. Those four people are going to be crucial to you being successful in the process. To having things done quickly so that you can stay within the time frame that you have been given or
okay,
that you said that you can do it. So
all right.
those are important.
So at the point that I signed that sale agreement now, so I spoke to my lawyer.
Yes.
He's reviewed the sale agreement. He says everything looks good. I
Yes.
sign, and he said, let's say we said 90 days or 120. What are my next steps from there?
Yes.
Do I know
When you
who do
sign,
I
after you sign and pay your deposit, then the vendor signs. When the
Okay.
vendor signs, that is when the date becomes live on
Okay.
the signing of their. Then you're going to get a copy of that sale agreement. You're going to take it and give it to your mortgage company, and they will start the process. They're going to ask you for a valuation and survey ID report. So as soon as you sign your sale agreement, you should start to figure out, maybe a realtor can refer somebody or your mortgage company will refer someone, a value and a surveyor. And they will go and do the checks on the house to ensure that the boundaries are good and that the value that you have offered, the value is in the property that you have offered on. So you don't want to offer $10 million on something and it only value 5. The mortgage company will not grant you the mortgage for that. So that is why those two things are important. I mean,
Okay, perfect.
we have seen situations where people are unsure and they get an opinion of value before just to make sure. But
Or,
something
or the sellers want to just sell it for some exorbitant amount of money,
for whatever
and
they feel, whatever they need. So it is important. So your sale agreement is often subjected to a mortgage. So if it's
okay,
subject to a mortgage, if the valuation comes out too far, the difference is too wide, then you're able to step out of the sale agreement.
okay,
You
okay.
know, so it is important because not all sale agreements have that clause. Some
Yeah,
sale agreements, if you sign it and you step out, you have to pay. They
which
hold on to
is which
my
is which is
deposit.
where the lawyer comes in, right? Because the lawyer is going to
Exactly.
protect your interest. Okay,
Exactly. The
all
lawyer will
right.
protect the interest. So that is
Okay,
important. So after that is done, then the mortgage company takes it through the mortgage process.
okay. So the mortgage process we'll cover in detail in another session. But let's say
Yeah.
that we're able to now finish up that process. So the mortgage process at a higher level,
Mm-hmm.
you really have to determine how you're going to be doing this. Is it going to be part NHC contribution and balance from the mortgage
Yes.
company? Depending on the value of the house, it could be all NHD.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have that breakdown
Definitely.
in another
Right.
video for you.
Okay.
But after you go through that process,
Mm-hmm.
and at some point, the mortgage company is going to say, based on the amount that you're taking out as mortgage, this
Mm-hmm.
is your monthly payments. You'll need to next consider things like insurance. As we said, you'll have closing
Yes.
costs to consider.
Yes.
So to talk to us about the part now after the kind of wrapping up of the purchasing part, because for a big chunk of that, from the point that the sale agreement starts,
Mm-hmm.
for like maybe half of that time, you'll be waiting to kind of go through the process with the
Yes.
mortgage
Right.
company.
Yeah.
What about now some of the steps that we'll have after? So let's say I've taken care of the mortgage process. What are the closing steps that I need to consider?
Okay. There the things that you need to be aware of. You may not have to be involved in all of them, but it is going the if you're buying an apartment or if it's any kind of communal living, a strata or so on, townhouse, the mortgage company is going to want to know that all the bills for that unit is all paid up. So if the maintenance is outstanding on that unit, you can go through the whole process, and at the last part of it, the owner did not pay the maintenance over time and there's a problem. Similarly with the water bill. So those are things that usually you don't get involved, but you have to be aware of it because it can slow down your process. Right?
Yeah. So as a person who is buying, it's a
Yes.
seller's responsibility to take
It
care of those
is.
things.
It is the
But
seller's
just
responsibility.
understand that that could potentially cause a delay for you.
It will cause a delay for you. There are times when there are things that can be worked out, but standard, it would be the seller's responsibility to do that. So after all of that, um, they're supposed to call you and say, "Here are your keys," because technically you have no control over what is happening at that time. It's between the mortgage company, stamp office, and the titles and National Land Agency. So it's kind of that's titles office. So you're kind of just waiting.
Yeah.
The surveyor may come up with something that the boundary is off. Let's say it's a single family home, the boundary is off. Then there's going to be a negotiation. It is the responsibility of the vendor, the person selling, to fix those things. But there may be a negotiation within that space. So after
Okay.
all of that, really, really and truly, um, you should just be called for your keys. You should
Okay.
be. Because there's going
So
to be a back and forth in the title, in the transfer time of it. In
yeah.
time, there'll be a back and forth. One thing that I didn't mention, when you sign your sale agreement, usually you sign your transfer. Usually, not all the time. And the attorneys hold on to that until the end where we actually do the transfer.
Okay.
So that happens sometimes. So you're
So
really just
so
waiting. You're waiting.
so let's say that we've done all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are there any other, so let's say that we've finished the mortgage process, mortgage, the money is sent over to the seller. I've gotten
Mm-hmm.
my keys.
Yes.
What are some of the things I need to think about at that point? Let's say that we've decided on an apartment, so it's a brand new place. What are my next steps? I just wanted to kind of have
Okay. If
persons
we're if we're if
visualize.
we're if we're first of all, apartments are governed by the strata laws, right? So usually there's going to be a committee set up, a management committee of owners who are going to run the complex. They may have a property manager or may not. Depends on what you all decide. But in that, what is important to know would be the health of your complex. Whether, I mean, there was a complex that I really shied away from because they had such a they had a they had some debt with the water commission, and what the complex had done, they had actually found another source. They were trucking water into the, you know what I mean? So there are things
Yeah.
that you need to find
So,
out.
so those are things that are important to know before you agree to buy,
Yes,
right?
that you
Because
should be. It would really help because it's a little disheartening when you come into somewhere new and you're celebrating and you realize, whoa, these are issues, but it's still a good thing to buy. I think that you're not going to get it 100% on the first go. You may find that the neighbor that you have in the apartment play loud music. There are things you're going to discover. There are people who, when they're buying somewhere, they go early morning, they go there in the evening, they go and look at. I've been with clients and we go to the place in the night to see how lit it is. If there's a
yeah,
security, the
yeah.
securities. There are things like that people do. But after you reach the stage of closing, it is really just for you to get it cleaned out. It may need a coat of paint, whatever repairs that you want done, if any, and you move in or you rent it out, whatever you choose to do.
Okay.
I don't think
So
there are a lot of things that happen after that. The waiting is the hardest part after you submit for your mortgage. Even when you get your approval, there's just this lag. And then with COVID, our government agencies are a little slower than, but they're not. So they're still not bad, compared to some other places. They're doing the
no
thing.
comment whatsoever. No comment.
Exactly.
I've done this process twice. I have no comment.
Exactly.
So okay, all right. So Judy, I think we've covered at a high level the things
Yeah.
that persons need to do. So I'll just kind of recap it for everybody
Yes.
who's been watching. So we spoke about the very first process is the mental state, right? So we spoke
Yes.
about being prepared mentally. Be sure this is
Mm-hmm.
something that you're ready for. It is a great responsibility.
That's correct.
So you go and get your pre-approval letter that shows you what you can afford,
Yes.
bearing in mind your current situation. As
Yes.
Judy said, it doesn't mean that this is your final home. It's your first one. So focus on what you can afford. After you get that pre-approval, you go to somebody like Judy and
Mm-hmm.
say, Judy, I have 15 million pre-approved. I want to find something between 12 and 15, or
Yes.
maybe we can find something between 13 and 17, and I'm hoping that I can offer 15 and it will be approved.
Right.
So I look at something, I found it, I say I like that one. She's gonna send you that KYC form, and you're going to fill out and complete the offer letter.
Mm-hmm.
You need to at that point maybe speak to your attorney and have them
Yes.
ready, submit that, then you'll get the sale agreement. Your attorney will review it.
Mm-hmm.
You sign, send it to the vendor, they sign. Once that's signed, the date from there, we have 90 or 120 days with which to complete the transaction.
Right.
Then you speak to your evaluator, your surveyor. The mortgage
Mm-hmm.
company will of course have you fill out some things, get your proof of income, your job letter, all the things that you'll need to
Yes.
complete the mortgage process. If you're going with NHT, you would engage them at that point as well.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're wrapping up the transaction, at some point you'll get an estimate from your attorney to say these are your closing costs, and
That's
so
correct.
prepare for these within the next 90 to 120
Mhm.
days. You prepare those funds, pay those funds, because the bank will ask you to ensure that your closing costs are paid before they disperse the mortgage.
Mhm.
And then once you have that, you get your keys, and that's pretty much
Celebrate.
the process. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, great, Judy.
That's
So
in a nutshell. That's what it is.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered everything. Just in case there are any questions that you have coming up, just leave them in the comments. We'll answer them. As I
Mhm.
said, we're gonna do a number of videos in this series because we want to do a video where we kind of break down, show you what the numbers look like, right?
Yes.
So that we're gonna use the $15 million property as the benchmark, but we're gonna show you some calculations, give you an idea of what the deposit will look like, what the lawyer fee may look like, what the surveyor fee would look like. All of those things we're going to break down in another video with Judy. So
Yeah.
stay tuned for that. But if you have questions about anything that we mentioned, post it in the comment. We'll respond to it. And I really do hope you found value in this video. If you
Yes.
did,
Hope so.
be sure to give it a like. Subscribe to this channel if you're brand new, and stay tuned for the next video.